Hi all, welcome to the video lecture series of Object-Oriented Programming. In this video lecture, we will be discussing about class fundamentals. These are the topics that we will be covering in this video lecture. We will see what's a class, how to create class, and what are objects, how to create objects, then methods or functions. So by now we know how to define a class. The definition of class is clear, right? Now we will see how to create class when we do programs. That is practical implementation of classes. How can we define a class? A class is defined as a user-defined template or blueprint. We also define a class as a collection of objects that share common properties. So the best example of a class is all the items that share some common properties can be considered as belonging to one class. For example, all the S3 CSE students, they belong to one class because all of them share some common properties. They belong to the same department, they belong to same semester, they belong to or they studies the same subjects. Everything is same, right? Except the name, the address, those things are different. So consider your case itself as an example for class and objects. S3 CSE classroom, it's actually a template, it's actually a prototype, right? If we say that one student belongs to S3 CSE, that means that student belongs to this department computer science, semester 3rd, and they study the same subjects mentioned in the syllabus as the other subjects in S3 CSE. Okay, so I'll take another example. All bike in this world belong to one class. I have mentioned this example before, right? That is, if I show you one pencil and if I am saying that this is a car, none of you will agree with that, because if you want to name something or if you want to call something as a car or a bike, okay, take the example of a car. If you want to call something as a car, that element must have 4 wheels, 4 doors, 1 engine, steering, brake, accelerator, clutch, everything. Otherwise we can't call that item as a car. That means for all cars in this world there is a model, there is a prototype. So all those items which matches or which implements everything as mentioned in that prototype can be called as a car. So that prototype that is known as a class. So that is why we are defining a class as a blueprint or a template. Okay, and it is this class that allows us or that helps us to create objects. So when we create an object, that object will be having all the properties mentioned inside the class. Now how to create a class when we write a program? When we create a class in a program, we have to take care of these things. There can be a modifier, that is, it can be public, private, or protected. All these terms are known as access modifiers. Access modifiers means the keywords that restricts the access or that controls the access to a class. We know the difference between public property and private properties, right? Public transport and private transport. Public transport means the transport facility that is common to the public, that is always available to the public, like our KSRTC or other buses, right? Private bus means it is belonging to some person, right? Or private vehicle. For example, we all own a bike or a car. That's our private vehicle. That is used by ourselves. It's not common to or it's not open to the public. Similarly, we can define whether a class as public or private. Means if a class is public means it is accessible by everybody. If a class is private means it is not accessible by everybody, only limited persons can access it. So those words are known as modifiers. We have to study access modifiers in detail, so we will discuss these things when we come across those topics. But for the time being, just understand that modifiers means something that controls the access to the class. Then definitely we have to give a name to a class. Say class S3CS. We in our college, all classes has got a name, right? S3CS, S5CS, S7CS, S3MEC. So all classes has got a name. Similarly, when we write program also, we have to name a class, because then only we can refer that class. Also, we have to create objects of a class. Okay, suppose if there is a student named Arjun in S3CSE, we must be able to say that Arjun is in S3CSE. That is possible because we have named that class as S3CSE, right? If there was no name for that class, we won't be able to say like this. There won't be any identity for that student named Arjun, right? So we have to name a class, that is known as class name, and these things has to be in order if it exists. Okay, modifiers are actually, it's optional, it's not compulsory. Class name is compulsory, we have to write a class name. Then superclass and interface. Superclass means it is something related to inheritance. We have studied one of the feature of object-oriented programming, that is inheritance. Superclass is a term that is related to inheritance. So we will study about this when we talk about inheritance. And interface is something about, again, about inheritance itself. So we will study superclass and interface when we come across a topic inheritance. So for the time being, just understand that if a class has to be a superclass, it has to be mentioned along with the class name. Also, if a class uses something known as interface, it also has to be mentioned along with the class name. Then comes the body of the class. Body of the class means everything that we write inside a class is known as the body of the class, and it has to be enclosed within a pair of curly brackets. We had mentioned this before. We have to visualize this pair of curly brackets as a protective wrapper that covers everything inside a class. So in Java, when we write a program, the first thing we have to do is we have to write a class, then open a pair of curly brackets, and we have to write all the remaining lines of code, declaration of variables, methods, everything inside this pair of curly brackets. So we have to think of this curly brackets as a protective wrapper that covers everything inside it. And this is one of the way by which Java provides encapsulation. We know what do you mean by encapsulation. We have discussed that by using a figure of one capsule. We mentioned that it is actually the medicine inside the capsule that has the effect. The protective covering outside it is actually protecting the medicine from the outside world. So this curly brackets can be thought of that protective wrapper that covers the medicine of a capsule. Okay, so that is class. That's how this is the basic syntax of creating a class. And this line is very important. Everything in Java is defined in a class. This is very, very important, because when we write a Java program, without any doubt, we have to make sure that the first thing we have to do is to write a class. For creating a class, we have to use the keyword class. Here this word class is a keyword. Then comes the class name. There must be a space between the keyword and the class name. And then opens the pair of curly brackets, and we have to write everything inside it. Okay. In a simplest way, we can say that the class in Java is similar to structure in C programming. I hope all of you are familiar with the topic structure in C programming. We use the keyword struct, then structure name, open the pair of curly brackets. We'll be writing different types of variables, right? That's a basic advantage of structure. We can group variables of different types in a single name. That is the advantage of structure. Similar to that, in Java, a class means not only collection of variables, but it also includes methods. When we defined or declared structure in C programming, a structure cannot include functions. It can include arrays, it can include variable names of different types that is allowed, but it's not possible to declare functions inside a structure. That's a major difference between a structure and a class. In class, we can include variables, arrays, as well as functions. And functions in Java are known as methods. Okay, so A class means collection of variables and methods. In this example that is shown over here, it consists of only variables. Employee is the class name. We are opening a pair of curly brackets. Inside that we are writing so many variables. 3 variables of type string and 1 variable of type integer. And the order in which we write this is not that important. It's not significant. It's immaterial. We can change the order in which we write this. It's not compulsory that all the string variables has to be declared first. It's not like that. Okay. And one more point that we have to remember is, when we save this file, anyway we are typing these lines of code in a text editor or notepad or notepad++, something like that. So we have to save this file, and we know that we have to save this file with .java extension. When we save this file, the file name that we give to save this must be same as that of the class name. So if the class name is employee, we have to save this file with the name employee, and the extension will be .java. That also you have to remember. So in Java everything is inside a class. That's the first point. Second point is, when we save a class file, we have to use the extension .java, and also because .java means it is a Java file, and also the name by which we save this must be same as that of the class name. Hope you understood. Now we will discuss about objects. Object is the basic unit of object-oriented programming language because they are the real life entities. So a class is a template, like we are just creating one format. Okay, so like it's a format of a form that we have to fill. Suppose I have to I have to get a feedback from you people. So what I will do is I will just create one Google form, right? In that Google form I will just enter this. I will just mention where you have to enter your email ID, where you have to enter your name, your mobile number, your feedback about the subject, all those things. And if I post that Google form into the drive or something, if I share that Google form with you, each one of you are getting a copy of that form, isn't it? When you are filling that form, I am getting the response from each one of you. So the copy that you people get is known as the objects, and the form that I created, that is actually a template, right? The copy that you get is actually a copy of the original template. The original template that I created, it exists there, it remains as it is. Whatever you're going to fill are actually in the copy that you are getting. Those copies can be considered as objects, and the original template that I created can be considered as a class. I hope all of you understood the relation between class and object. Okay. Every object consists of state, behavior, and identity. Identity I don't have to explain much because our identity is our name, right? My name is Nikhil. Similarly, each one of you have got your own name. Your name is your identity. Similarly, for all objects there will be a unique name, so that we can uniquely identify that object. That is known as identity. Then behavior means the methods inside that object. So an object will get all the methods that was designed inside a class. So if you want to create an object, there must be a class, there must be an original template. That original template is created by we, the programmers. When we create that original template, we will be writing so many methods and variables inside that class. So when we create an object based on that template, the object that we create will get all the methods and variables inside that class. Okay, so it is the methods that determines how the object is going to behave. Okay, and state means the variables, the variable values that are known as the state of the object. So every object that we create will have state, behavior, and identity. And also we can create any number of objects from a single class. There is no limit in the number of objects that we can create. Is there any limit in creating number of cars in this world? Day by day different cars are getting released, right? Day by day different car models are being released, right? Isn't it? So there is no limit in the number of objects that we can create from a prototype, from a class. We can create any number of objects. But only one thing that we have to keep in mind, even if the number of objects is millions and millions, all objects will be having the common properties that is mentioned in the original template, which is our class. Is that clear? In this world there are so many cars, right? BMW, Audi, Ford, Hyundai. There are different companies and they are releasing different cars, right? Sedan, hatchback, SUV. There are so many models of all different companies. But even then we call them as a car, because something if you have to call as a car, we have set a prototype. All those things that follows that prototype will be mentioned as a car only. The models may be different, but even then they are car itself. I hope it's clear. Then how to declare objects? Declaring the objects are also known as instantiating a class. This word is quite difficult to say, so you have to read it slowly. It is instantiating. Okay, that is, we are creating instances of a class. So declaring an object is also known as creating an instance of a class or instantiating of a class. Okay, when an object of a class is created, the class is said to be instantiated. All the instances share the attributes and the behavior of the class. Okay, but the values of those attributes or the state are unique for each object. For example, take the same example as that of the car. I told you there are different companies, right? Take two examples, say Hyundai and Maruti. All Hyundai and Maruti, they are car companies. Both of them release so many different models of cars day by day. But whether they have some common properties, like they have four wheels, they have an engine, they have accelerator, they have clutch, they have brake, they have hand brakes, they have wipers, they have dicky, bonnet. All those features are there. But the model name, the name of the car, the engine specifications, the emblem they use, the brake light design, everything is different. That is, it is the design followed by Maruti is unique to Maruti. The design followed by Hyundai is unique to Hyundai. But even then, the objects belong to the same class. They have different features or attributes. Okay, or you can see this example. If that example is not clear, you can see this picture. Here I have created a class. The class name is dog, and these are the different attributes and behaviors of that class. Attributes are breed, age, color, and behaviors include bark, sleep, and eat. And I am creating four objects of the class: dog 1, dog 2, dog 3, dog 4. Dog 1 may be belonging to one breed. Its age may be, say, 10 years. Its color may be black. Dog 2 may be belonging to another breed. Its age may be 5 years. Color may be brown. It's not same as dog 1. Similarly, dog 3 and dog 4, they may be unique. I hope you understood the difference between class and objects, right? And what does we mean by instantiating a class? Now, we always write some lines of code like int a. What does that line mean? We are actually declaring a variable of type integer, right? But that doesn't mean that the variable has got some value. Similarly, when we create an object, okay, we can write like this: dog Tuffy. So here dog is a class, Tuffy is the variable of type dog, similar to what we write as int a. When we write int a is the variable name and its type is int. Similarly, when we write dog Tuffy, Tuffy is the name and its type is that of dog. Similar to that, like we create structure variables or structure elements in C programming. But when we do like this, object creation is not complete. We are actually creating only a reference variable. We are only mentioning one variable name. We are not actually creating an object when we write like this. If the object creation has to be complete, we have to follow these three steps. First of all, we have to declare a variable of type of the class. Then we have to instantiate this by using the new keyword. Then we have to initialize it by calling the constructor. We will see what's the constructor, we will see what is declaration, and we will see how we can use a new keyword. This is an example of creating a class, creating an object of class employee. We have seen this class employee in one of the previous slides. There are some 3 string variables and 1 integer variable in that class. If we want to create an object of that class, this is the syntax we have to follow. We have to write the class name, space the object name, then equal to, new is a keyword, and the word that comes after new keyword is known as the constructor. As you can see, there is a pair of parentheses followed by this. So by seeing the pair of parentheses itself, we can make sure that it's a method, it's a function, because pair of parentheses are used only for functions. So whenever you see a pair of parentheses, you can make sure that it's a function or a method. Functions are known as methods in Java. That is why I told you it's method. Okay, so this word that comes after the new keyword when we create an object is known as the constructor. Can you see any similarity between the class name and the name of the constructor? Yes, the class name and the name of constructor are same, or it must be the same. That is the specialty of constructor. A constructor means it's a method having the same name as that of the class. I repeat, a constructor is a method which have the same name as that of the class. Here the class name is employee, and the name of the method, the constructor, is also employee. That's what I told you. A method having the same name as that of the class is known as a constructor. And as the name indicates, it is used only for constructing objects. Constructor means someone who constructs. Constructor means to create, right? So constructor is a method that is used only when we create objects. There is no other responsibility for this method constructor. Constructor is used for creating objects, for initializing the object. That means to give some initial values to the object. That is the responsibility, or that is the only duty of constructor. Now how to access member data or member methods by an object. Okay, so see this, I am creating one object named E1 of class employee. So E1 is one object. If I want to access the elements of class, of object E1, I have to use the dot operator. Object name dot the variable name. So E1 dot name means the name variable of object E1. E1.ssn means the variable ssn of object E1. E1.email address means the email address of object E1. Why I am saying like this is because when we create two objects, see this example, I am creating E1 and E2. Both of them are objects of class employee. Okay, so E1 will have its own copy of variables of class employee. E2 also will have its own unique copy of variables and methods of class employee. So if you are assigning a name value of John to employee object E1, that name will be belonging to only E1. It is not going to affect the variable value of name in E2. So E1 is an object of class employee. That means E1 will be getting a unique copy of all their methods and variables inside class employee. Similarly, E2 also will be getting a unique copy of variables and methods inside a class employee. Similar to, like I said, I create a form, I post it in the Google Drive, and if I share to you people, each one of you will be getting unique copy. If you are going to enter, if roll number 1 is going to enter his or her email ID or name, that is not going to affect the email ID or the name entered by roll number 2. Each one of you will be getting your own copy. Whatever you can type there, it's affecting only your own copy. It's not going to affect the others. That's what I told you. So if you want to access the member data or methods of an object, of one object, we have to use the dot operator. The object name dot the variable name or the method name. Okay, even dot name means the name of object even. Even dot SSN means the SSN of even. Even dot email address means email address of even. So that is the usage of dot operator. The same as in the case of C structure variables, right? We use the dot variable for accessing structure elements, right? By using structure variables. Okay. Now about default constructor. All classes that we create or that we write in Java will have at least one constructor. It's not mandatory that we the programmers need to write the constructor when we create the class, when we type the code. If the programmers, that is the one who create the Java program, have not written the constructor, Java compiler will make a default constructor. That is the definition of default constructor. If a class does not explicitly declare any constructor, then the Java compiler automatically provides a no argument constructor, which is called default constructor. No argument means that constructor will not have any parameters. So the constructor without any parameter, that is provided by the Java virtual machine when the users have not created any constructor when they have created the class. Those constructors are known as default constructor. So where we have to use constructor? The constructor is used only when we create objects. Only when we create object we need constructor. We don't want constructor for anything else. And constructors are methods itself, but only one difference, that is the name of the method will be same as that of the class. Then object reference. This is, I will explain with the help of an example. When we create like this, when we create an object of class example like this, so example A equal to new example. Here A is the name of the object. A is actually a reference. So when we execute this line of code, what happens is we are actually allocating a memory inside the computer and we are giving a name A to that memory block. So when we call some method A, so if you want to call a method inside the object A, we have to use A dot some task, and if we have to access a variable X inside the object A, we have to write it like A dot X equal to 5. Okay, and we are giving, suppose in this example we are giving the value of 5 to variable X. Now if I am creating another object, example B equal to new example, so B is another object, but later on if I am writing B equal to A, what happens? We are assigning the value, or we are assigning the object A to B. That means after this line of code, both B and A will be pointing to the same memory location. So after this line of code, if we try to access B.X, the value will be 5 because we have assigned A.X as 5 itself. I hope that is clear. So this is known as object reference. We shall conclude by now. We have left out one topic, which is methods, that we will discuss in the next video lecture. So in this video lecture we discussed about how to create class, what are the different terms that we have to consider when we create a class, how to create objects of a class, then what's a constructor, what's the use of constructor. We will study constructors in detail, don't worry, but for the time you just understand that constructors are methods for creating objects. Then we also discussed about object reference, what's the meaning of object reference. and how does the object reference work when we assign one object to another object, what changes will occur, etc. So that's all in this video.